Hello everyone and welcome to another Arcane Mage video. In this video I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to take a look at the corruption item Infinite Stars, and I'm going to do a little bit of a demonstration for you on some theories I have about making use of Infinite Stars as Arcane Mage and that sort of stuff. So before I do that, I'd just like to mention what is Infinite Stars and what have I been doing to test this out. Infinite Stars, of course, is a corruption piece that is really useful in single target. It calls down a star that deals a certain amount of damage on the target and gives it a stacking debuff. As the debuff stacks up to 10, the stars do more damage. So this rewards players for targeting the same creature or enemy and targeting them for quite a long time and casting spells against them. In a raid encounter, you're hoping, if you run Infinite Stars, to try to stack these up as much as possible on the boss, because once it reaches that 10 threshold, you're doing a ton of damage. And for some classes like Shadow Priests or Demon Hunters, they seem to be able to maximize the use of Infinite Stars. They get essentially more procs per minute on average than other classes. This is partly to do, I think, with haste and the GCD and just the way those classes are designed. And what I've been doing is kind of testing out Infinite Stars for Mage. I picked up quite a few pieces, so I was pushing the max, putting on like 125 corruption worth of Infinite Stars and just testing it out. Frost Mage, of course, has come up as the best user of Infinite Stars for Mage because you can use their Icy Veins cooldown, which gives 30% haste. You can stack a bunch of haste together and get a lot of resets and keep Icy Veins going with certain builds like Vision of Perfection. It essentially allows you to get in a 5-minute window somewhere between 20 and 24 occurrences of Infinite Stars, which is quite a lot. Arcane Mage in general doesn't get quite so many. If you just do a regular single target build and you're attempting to proc Infinite Stars, you'll get around 10 to 15 hits perhaps in the same window, about 5 minutes. And you can see here, this is with, again, all of my Infinite Star gear. I'm hitting for around 870,000 damage when it crits. So it does quite a lot of damage. But of course, the caveat is, in a raid encounter, you really can't get above between 40 and 60 corruption, or you're just going to die. You're going to spawn a bunch of things from beyond. You won't be able to do your regular rotation. So I'm looking at trying to sort out what is a meaningful way to make use of this, and are there any tricks. And one thing I've come across is that there's a big discrepancy between the use of Infinite Stars in a regular rotation and the use of Infinite Stars with Nether Tempest. Nether Tempest is a talent we, generally speaking, don't use as Arcane because it's almost a waste of a global cooldown in single target, and it really doesn't serve us very well in the AoE realm as well. You need usually a ton of stacked mobs that are going to live for a long time for Nether Tempest to be of serious value, because it ticks from 12 seconds down. It doesn't offer us any mana regen or regeneration like with Reverberate, and essentially the damage is kind of low for what you're getting. So it's basically useless compared to Touch of the Magi, which has some value in single target, and it's just doesn't compete with the kinds of management that Reverberate offers us for AoE. So we tend not to use it, but actually it seems to be able, if you keep it running, seems to be a driver for Infinite Stars. In the number of tests that I've done here on this dummy and just thinking about it, we get, in fact, upwards of 16 to 20 occurrences of Infinite Stars compared to the 10 to 12 range that we get in a normal encounter. And this is not with Lust on pull or anything like that. All the same conditions were used, we just didn't use Nether Tempest versus using it in this instance. And you can see here that the max damage I've done is about 600,000. This is with my modified build, so my regular single target approach at about 60 corruption. I'm running one tier 2 piece on my weapon, one tier 3 piece on my gloves, and at 65 corruption it's a bit more than what I want, but at least it's within the range of testing. So I'd like to do another demonstration for you guys here. I'm just running World Vein Resonance. You might squeeze a little bit more value if you're trying to build up your IS stacks on single target by running the Golem and firing off your condensed life force at the beginning to give you a bit more haste. But essentially the rotation is going to be on pull. We're going to pre-pot with our focused resolve, casting an Arcane Blast into our charged up, and then we're immediately going to press and get rolling our Nether Tempest. Then we'll go into our regular rotation, dropping our World Vein Resonance, dropping our Rune of Power, going into the rotation and blasting down the same way. It'll fall off, but then afterwards we'll keep it up all the way through, even in our conservation phase. So let's give it a roll. I'll try to lust in here as well as we get going, just so we can see. Get it on. Get the rotation going. It's going to fall off here, but as I said, we're just going to burst it down. Try to squeeze out as much as we can. Reset it here before we drop our second rune. And then we'll go to town on the boss. Now as we burn down, we're going to look to evocate up. And then as much as possible, just keep it going. So we'll cast it whenever it gets low. It doesn't really matter that we always cast it at 4 charges because we're not really worried about the damage coming out of the Nether Tempest. What we're actually looking for is to get the proc going at all times. So just to make sure there's a consistent thing running, trying not to let it fall off. Obviously the damage is helpful, but it's really something that's so minimal compared to what we're looking at. You can see in the background there, we're getting some procs, and we have infinite charges at about 15%. That is currently about 5 hits. So not too bad. And we've been running for about 1 minute and 9 seconds. So if you think about a 5-minute boss encounter, 5 hits times 4 is about 20. That's pretty decent. Make sure we don't mess up our rotation. And what I've been finding is, I think this approach essentially allows you to maintain as much as possible the same kind of scope that is offered by your single target rotation with Arcane, and then still taking advantage without losing too much DPS. Still taking advantage of infinite stars. Let's go into our second rotation here. Burst down. Again, we're not going to care too much if it falls off in this instance. Put it back on. And burst our way back down to the bottom. Just check the time here. I'm going to stop it at 5 minutes, just so we can keep it consistent with some of the other things I've been doing. We'll blink out of this. So in a raid encounter, of course, I'm going to be trying to take advantage of blinking at the appropriate times to get out of my corruption issues. But again, it's a little bit dicey even at 65. Mostly I just wanted to make sure I don't die so I can finish this demonstration. So we're about halfway through, and now we're going to probably start to see it really coming online for us. So about 2.5 minute mark to 3 minute mark is where you want to be when you start to see 8 to 10 stacks. And after that point, that's when the damage is going to start to go through the roof. Just get back into a central position here. We're almost at our third burn phase. Just make sure we have everything going before. I think we can afford to squeeze one more out so that we get back to full mana. And I'll reset this, refresh it before I go into my burn phase, just so that we have it going. Now you might be thinking, well, the global cooldowns aren't really worth it. But I think this testing I've been doing has been showing that there's a lot of positive results. A lot of our damage is focused into one very central element, the burn phase, which is about 15 seconds long. And if we can do anything else to maximize the damage profile of Arcane through the use of infinite stars, and all it takes is us taking a really dead talent either way, I think it might be worth looking at. Where are we at for time? 4 minutes, so about a minute left. Again, we're just refreshing as we go. We'll get probably get one more arcane power, at least part of it, before we close off. Just burn a bit here. Burn a bit of our mana off. Again, because of Equipoise, we're trying to stay above 70% mana. Halfway, so about 30 seconds left. And then we'll check and see how we did. But we'll get about 5 seconds worth within this window. And we'll call it a day. We'll get out of range, so we stop the timer. There we go. Right, so this encounter, roughly 5 minutes worth. We had a fairly reasonable damage profile, lust on pull. We got only 12. Maybe I'm wrong about Nether Tempest. Something I'm going to keep testing out. But yeah, I just wanted to bring this along for your enjoyment, to maybe check out how to use infinite stars, what sorts of tricks might work. Thanks guys for watching.